Do you think a killing machine from the future is crazy enough? Then wait until you find out what really happened behind the scenes. There were scenes filmed out in the real world where the people around had no idea it was a movie crew. There were legendary moments created simply because they ran out of money. And there were decisions that seemed like disasters but ended up making cinematic history. Here are 12 weird facts about the Terminator 1984 that even many longtime fans have never heard. Leave a comment saying, "I'll be back," if you believe you know every secret about the Terminator. Watch until the end to find out if you're right. Or if this movie still has a few surprises waiting for you. Number 12. Arnold almost played the hero, but ended up becoming the perfect machine. Just imagine this for a second. Arnold Schwarzenegger as the battle-worn soldier Kyle Reese, while another actor played the killer machine, the Terminator. Yep, thankfully that version only exists in a parallel universe. At first, the studio wanted Arnold to play Kyle Reese. James Cameron agreed to meet him over lunch to talk about the role. But here's the interesting part. Arnold barely talked about the hero at all. Instead, he kept analyzing the Terminator. He talked about how it should move, how it should scan a room with its eyes, and how it should reload a magazine without ever looking down at the gun. Right there at the lunch table, Arnold was practically choreographing every movement of a cyborg. By the time lunch was over, James Cameron had completely changed his casting decision.
The funny thing was, when I went to that lunch, I didn't see that as you know, in the back of my mind, I was thinking the Terminator, you were thinking the Terminator, but we sit and we have this polite lunch because we've never met each other, and neither one of us mentions it, right? And then we both go back to our guys and say, Terminator.
Michael Biehn was cast as Kyle Reese, and Arnold officially became the T-800. What followed was an incredibly demanding period of training. A lot of people assume playing a robot must have been easy for Arnold, but the reality was exactly the opposite. He spent weeks training with weapons experts, repeating magazine changes over and over until his hands could perform the exact same sequence of movements every single time. He learned to shoot with both hands, pull the trigger without blinking, and keep his face completely expressionless even while firing. On set, Arnold was willing to rehearse the same movement up to 50 times before the cameras even started rolling. James Cameron took full advantage of that discipline, often holding the camera on Arnold's hands for long stretches. Draw, aim, fire, reload. Not a single movement was wasted. That almost flawless precision is exactly what has kept the character so convincing to audiences even today.
The 12-gauge autoloader.
That's Italian. You can go pump or auto.
The 45 long slide with laser sighting.
These are brand new. We just got them in. That's a good gun.
The Terminator had a human body, but every one of its actions felt like those of a pre-programmed machine. One lunch meeting completely changed the casting decision, and weeks of obsessive training turned Arnold Schwarzenegger into one of the most iconic villains in movie history. Number 11. The original ending was so bad it had to be cut. The Terminator almost ended in a completely different way, but in the end, that scene wasn't removed because of the pacing or the tone. It was cut for one simple reason: the acting was terrible. In James Cameron's original cut, the movie didn't end with Sarah driving into the approaching storm. There was one more scene after that. Two men in suits arrived at the ruined factory, searched through the wreckage, and discovered the remains of the Terminator. They calmly discussed taking the pieces to the research department for further analysis.
What's that?
Microcomputer chassis, but I never saw stuff like that anywhere.
Weird. Jap stuff, maybe.
Get it down to R&D first thing Monday morning, huh?
Good idea.
Then the camera cut to the sign outside the building. Cyberdyne Systems. That's right. The original script was going to reveal the origin of Skynet directly to the audience, 7 years before Terminator 2. Judgment Day turned that reveal into one of the biggest moments of the sequel.
I need to know how Skynet gets built. Who's responsible?
The man most directly responsible is Miles Bennett Dyson.
So why was the scene removed? The reason was that one of the film's financial backers pressured the production into casting two of his investor friends as the men in the scene, instead of hiring professional actors. James Cameron filmed the scene exactly as requested, but as soon as he watched the rough cut, he immediately decided to remove it. Their performances were so stiff, awkward, and unnatural that they ruined the emotional impact of the ending. So Cameron did what many directors can only wish they could do when investors force them to cast the wrong people. He cut the entire scene from the film. It was both a quiet but highly effective act of payback, and it accidentally gave the Terminator a cleaner ending, while allowing Terminator 2 to build the legend of Cyberdyne and Skynet in a far more compelling, mysterious, and unforgettable way. Sometimes the best creative decisions begin because someone else comes up with a really bad idea. Number 10. The entire movie began with a nightmare made of metal. Skynet, Kyle Reese, and the time travel paradoxes that fans are still arguing about to this day. They all began with one nightmare James Cameron had. At the time, he was in Europe, seriously ill, exhausted, and stranded in a hotel after the production of Piranha 2 ended in failure. During a high fever, Cameron had an incredibly vivid dream. He saw a chrome-plated metal skeleton dragging itself out of a sea of fire, holding 2 kitchen knives. There was no skin, no biker jacket, just a skull with glowing red eyes, a metal skeleton, and 2 knife blades instead of hands, slowly crawling through the flames toward him. It was the kind of nightmare powerful enough to make you wake up and never want to go back to sleep again. The moment he woke up, Cameron immediately sketched the image. That drawing later became the first design of the T-800. But he still had one major problem. How could he build an entire movie around that terrifying machine when the budget was not enough to recreate the massive war in the future? That was when the idea of time travel was born. Instead of telling the entire story in the future, Cameron decided to send the killer machine back to Los Angeles in the 1980s. He used real streets as filming locations, saved money, and devoted only a few brief scenes to portraying the future war. Skulls crushed beneath tanks, laser beams tearing through the night. Only a few minutes on screen, but enough to make audiences believe that an entire terrifying war was unfolding ahead. The fever gave James Cameron the image of the Terminator. The limited budget accidentally shaped the entire structure of the movie, and it was his own subconscious that gave the world one more reason to never completely trust robots. Number 9. The liquid metal villain was originally supposed to appear from the very beginning. If you think the T-1000 was a completely new idea that James Cameron came up with only when making the sequel, the truth isn't quite that simple. In fact, this terrifying liquid metal machine was already present in the earliest outlines of the Terminator. When James Cameron first began developing the story, he didn't imagine just a single killer robot. In the original concept, 2 machines would be sent back through time. One was a metal skeleton covered in human flesh, the Terminator model that audiences are all familiar with. The other machine was made of liquid metal, capable of transforming into any shape. In Cameron's imagination, it could flow through prison bars, turn its arms into razor-sharp blades, and impersonate anyone it wanted. All of those terrifying abilities would later appear in Terminator 2, Judgment Day. But the problem was that in 1984, filmmaking technology simply wasn't advanced enough to bring that idea to life. Not only were the visual effects still too limited, but the film's budget also couldn't support a character that complex. If they had tried to make it back then, the result probably would have looked like a broken lava lamp trying to hunt down people. So James Cameron had no choice but to put that ambitious idea aside. He focused the entire story on a single villain, the T-800, while designing the action scenes around practical effects that the production team could actually achieve at the time. The idea of the liquid metal Terminator was shelved for years. Only when he had a much bigger budget and visual effects technology had advanced dramatically did Cameron bring the idea back and build almost the entire Terminator 2 around it. The Silver Nightmare chasing John Connor was actually the villain James Cameron had wanted to put on screen from the very first movie, but at the time, Hollywood simply wasn't capable of creating it. Terminator 2 feels like a massive leap forward in technology and visual effects because it was the dream James Cameron had been carrying with him since day one. He simply had to wait until filmmaking technology and the budget were powerful enough to catch up with his imagination. Number 8. The Terminator was sued before it even became a movie franchise. Before the Terminator became a billion-dollar franchise, the film nearly became the center of a copyright lawsuit. Science fiction writer Harlan Ellison, famous not only for his talent but also for his strong-willed personality, watched the film and quickly made an accusation. He claimed that James Cameron had borrowed ideas from 2 episodes of The Outer Limits that he himself had written in the 1960s, Soldier and Demon with a Glass Hand. Both stories revolved around soldiers sent back through time, and Ellison believed those similarities were far from a coincidence.
In the course of his interview, someone had said to him, "Where did you get the basic conception for Terminator?" And his response was, "Oh, I ripped off a couple of Outer Limits segments."
However, James Cameron always maintained that the idea for the Terminator came from his own nightmare about a chrome-plated metal skeleton crawling out of a sea of fire. But Harlan Ellison did not accept that explanation. And he also had a team of lawyers ready to pursue the case. Faced with the possibility of entering a lengthy legal battle, the studio weighed the options of fighting the lawsuit or settling out of court, then chose the less risky path. Ellison received a financial settlement. More importantly, his name was also added to the film's credits. If you watch later releases of The Terminator, you will see a credit stating that the film acknowledges the works of Harlan Ellison. James Cameron was reportedly very unhappy with that decision and repeatedly stated that he had no involvement in the settlement agreement. But the studio did not want to risk going up against one of the most famous science fiction writers, who was also well known for being willing to sue to protect his rights. So the film that turned Arnold Schwarzenegger into a global superstar also came with an asterisk and a settlement check. Number 7. James Cameron sold the script for just $1. Before The Terminator was made, James Cameron was not yet the king of the world he would later become. At the time, he was just a director who had been fired from Piranha 2, a low-budget film, and had almost nothing to his name except an ambitious science fiction horror script that almost no studio wanted to finance. But there was one thing Cameron was never willing to compromise. If The Terminator was going to be made, he had to be the one directing it.
Come with me if you want to live.
Then producer Gale Ann Hurd came along. She believed in the project, but convincing studios to invest in a dark science fiction film from an unknown director was almost impossible. So Cameron made a decision that is still considered both bold and crazy today. He sold the rights to the script to Gale Ann Hurd for exactly $1. That's right, just $1. In return, Hurd would become the producer, and Cameron was guaranteed the director's chair. By Hollywood standards, it was like trading a lottery ticket with jackpot potential for a handful of loose change. But Cameron understood that a great script was only half the dream. If the movie ended up in another director's hands and was ruined, then his idea of a killer machine born from his nightmare would disappear along with it. That agreement ultimately produced results far beyond expectations. Gale Ann Hurd managed to secure financing, and James Cameron kept creative control. Together, they turned that $1 script into the movie that put both of their names on the Hollywood map. From there, The Terminator gave birth to one of the most famous science fiction franchises in the world, with multiple sequels, video games, merchandise, and millions of people imitating the line,
Come with me if you want to live.
In the history of Hollywood, this was undoubtedly one of the most successful career gambles of all time. Number 6. The movie was filmed like a guerrilla operation. One of the reasons The Terminator feels so real and intense is that making the movie was almost as risky as the story itself. This was not the kind of blockbuster that shut down entire city blocks for filming. It was more like a guerrilla filmmaking operation, where the crew had to take every opportunity to get the shot before anyone could stop them. The budget was tight, and the shooting schedule was incredibly demanding. James Cameron was determined to put every dollar on the screen. That meant constantly filming at real locations, finishing each scene as quickly as possible, and leaving immediately afterward. In many of the street scenes, the people in the background were actually just ordinary pedestrians. They were going about their daily lives and had no idea they had just appeared in a science fiction movie. The nighttime scenes, the empty streets, and the high-speed driving sequences all feel as though the crew was secretly filming in the real world. One of the clearest examples happened just a few weeks before the movie was released. James Cameron suddenly decided that he needed one more close-up shot of the Terminator crashing into a station wagon and then continuing to drive away. But by then, the budget was almost completely gone, and there was very little time left. So Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger took only a skeleton crew, one car, and one camera, then completed the entire scene in about 2 hours. Cameron even paid for it out of his own pocket. There were not enough permits, and there was no opportunity for another take if something went wrong. The only goal was to capture the shot before anyone told them to stop. Arnold even kept a change of clothes in the car. If anyone questioned them, the two of them would change outfits and pretend they were simply driving around Los Angeles. That shoot first, explain later mentality stayed with the production throughout almost the entire filmmaking process. Maybe that is exactly why the Terminator feels so different. Not because of perfectly constructed studio sets, but because of the old alleyways, the dark street corners, and a real Los Angeles, where people casually went about their lives while a nightmare from the future quietly moved closer. The movie looks far bigger than the money they actually had, and that raw, fearless approach became an irreplaceable part of the Terminator's lasting appeal.
Now, unfortunately, the rig was not mobile. It couldn't be moved at the speed that I wanted the car to be moving because the car is in motion. You can create the illusion that the car is moving by moving the background.
Before we move on to the next facts, if you're enjoying these little-known behind-the-scenes stories about the Terminator, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can join us for more videos like this. And while you're here, let us know in the comments. When did you first watch The Terminator? Was it in a movie theater, on television, or on one of those classic VHS tapes? Now, let's continue with the next facts. Number 5. The Terminator barely speaks, and that was entirely intentional. For a character with such a powerful screen presence, the Terminator says remarkably little. It hardly wastes a single word, or more accurately, whatever this machine uses instead of breath. Throughout the entire movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger has a surprisingly small number of lines. There are no long villain speeches, no dramatic monologues explaining the plan or its philosophy. Just short, direct statements that sound as if they have been generated by a computer command.
Sarah Connor.
Yes?
That was completely James Cameron's intention. He deliberately kept the dialogue to an absolute minimum. At the time, Arnold still had a very strong Austrian accent. Cameron realized that the less the Terminator spoke, the more terrifying and effective the character became. After all, nobody wants a killer machine standing around arguing or explaining itself. The audience just wants to see it scan the target, lock onto the target, and eliminate anything that gets in its way. So instead of trying to write awkward dialogue to hide Arnold's accent, Cameron turned the silence itself into a weapon. The Terminator speaks only when it needs information, when it needs someone to open a door, or when it has to deliver the line that the entire world would later know by heart.
Nice night for a walk. I'll be back.
With only a few dozen lines, Arnold delivered one of the most iconic performances of the entire decade. Not bad for a character whose acting mostly consisted of staring, taking cold, deliberate steps, and reloading with perfect precision. Number 4. Arnold deliberately kept his distance from his co-stars. There was something quite interesting happening on the set of The Terminator. While many actors try to become close friends with their co-stars to build chemistry before the cameras roll, Arnold Schwarzenegger did exactly the opposite. He deliberately kept his distance from Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn throughout the entire production. He didn't talk with them very often, didn't hang out after filming, and didn't joke around between takes like many casts do. It wasn't because Arnold was unfriendly. It was a deliberate choice. He wanted Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese to build a natural connection with each other, while he remained the outsider. The idea was very simple. If Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn genuinely developed a sense of closeness off-screen, that connection would naturally show up on screen as well. The Terminator, on the other hand, had to feel like a complete stranger at all times. A being that did not belong in their world, without emotion, without empathy, and without any connection to humanity. So while Linda Hamilton and Michael Biehn became more and more comfortable together, Arnold quietly kept his distance. He wasn't cold or unpleasant. He simply avoided creating unnecessary familiarity. As a result, every time he walked onto the set as the Terminator, he didn't feel like a fellow actor performing alongside them. He felt like a machine that had invaded their lives, and that comes across very clearly in the film. Even though all three characters share the same story, the Terminator always feels separate from everyone else. Not a human being taking part in the chase, but a cold, silent machine moving through the lives of Sarah and Kyle, seeing them as nothing more than targets that had to be eliminated. Number 3. The eerie fog in the movie was actually insecticide. One of the most haunting scenes in The Terminator was not created with visual effects or a fog machine. It came from a real-life coincidence. After Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese spend the night hiding beneath an overpass, the two of them step out into a thin layer of mist covering everything around them. The scene feels cold, bleak, and deeply unsettling. It looks like something James Cameron deliberately staged to suggest that the nightmare was far from over. But the truth was completely different. At that exact time, the city of Los Angeles was carrying out a large-scale insecticide spraying campaign to deal with an outbreak of fruit flies. The mist seen in the scene was actually the insecticide still hanging in the air. When the film crew saw it, they thought only one thing: that looks great, so they decided to use it. Visually, it was clearly an excellent decision. The mist made the scene feel cold, toxic, and almost apocalyptic, as if the very atmosphere itself had already turned against humanity long before Skynet ever existed. But when it comes to health, it probably wasn't the best idea. A movie about a future destroyed by machines ended up filming in an atmosphere that probably no one should have been breathing. Sometimes, movie magic comes from the most unexpected places, even a citywide insecticide spraying campaign. Number 2. Michael Biehn almost lost the role of Kyle Reese because of his southern accent. It may sound hard to believe, but Michael Biehn was once on the verge of losing the role of Kyle Reese simply because of the way he spoke.
I love you. I always have.
When he attended his first audition, Biehn had just finished performing in Cat on a hot tin roof. Still immersed in the role, he brought a strong Tennessee accent into the audition. The casting team noticed it immediately, and they became concerned. Kyle Reese could not sound like someone who had just stepped out of the American South. He was a soldier from a post-apocalyptic future, where the world had collapsed long ago, and the boundaries between regions had all but disappeared. If the character spoke with such a distinctive regional accent, audiences would have a hard time believing he had truly come from the future. For that reason, even though the filmmakers were very impressed with Michael Biehn's acting, they decided not to cast him after the first audition. Biehn's agent quickly found out why and called the production team to explain. The southern accent was only required for his stage role. It was not his natural speaking voice at all. The filmmakers decided to give Biehn another chance. At the second audition, he used his normal voice. The Tennessee accent was gone. The unmistakable southern pronunciation was gone. All that remained was a short, dry, and weary voice that perfectly matched the image of Kyle Reese.
There's a chance to meet the legend. Sarah Connor. Taught her son to fight, organize, prepare from when he was a kid.
The second audition changed everything. Instead of sounding like a young man from some state in America, Kyle Reese now sounded exactly like someone who had grown up in underground shelters after the apocalypse. And it all began because the filmmakers did not want their hero to sound like he had just stepped out of a country music song. Number 1. Arnold accidentally terrified an entire restaurant. Movie makeup can sometimes look so realistic that even people outside a film set cannot tell what is real and what is not. And Arnold Schwarzenegger accidentally proved it. On one of the final shooting days of The Terminator, Arnold spent hours in the makeup chair, while the effects team transformed him into the battle-damaged T-800. His face was torn apart. The metal endoskeleton was exposed beneath his cheek. One eye was gone, replaced by a glowing red eye socket. His face was covered with burns and horrific injuries. In short, He looked as if he had just walked away from a massive explosion. When lunch break came, the shooting schedule was so tight and everyone was so hungry that Arnold decided to go get something to eat. The problem was, he was still wearing the full makeup. Imagine sitting in an ordinary restaurant in Los Angeles during the mid-1980s. Suddenly, the front door opens. A huge man walks in with one eye missing, part of his skull exposing metal, and a face covered in horrifying wounds. He calmly walks up to the counter to order his food as if nothing has happened. The entire restaurant almost froze. Conversations came to an immediate stop. Every eye turned toward the strange customer, but no one dared to stare for very long. Meanwhile, Arnold was simply trying to order lunch. For the film crew, it was just another ordinary workday. But for the people eating in that restaurant, it was probably an experience they never forgot. Even today, someone is probably still telling the story about the day a half-man, half-machine walked into a restaurant just to order food. And if you look at it another way, it was also the greatest compliment Stan Winston and his makeup team could have received. They created a Terminator so convincing that it could frighten an entire restaurant without dramatic music, without a chase scene, and without a single cinematic effect. All it took was one guy walking in to order a sandwich, and everyone started wondering whether Judgment Day had just begun. So there you have it. We've just explored 12 fascinating weird facts about the Terminator. 1984. Out of all the behind-the-scenes secrets we covered today, which one surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoy weird facts, little-known behind-the-scenes stories, and fascinating secrets about classic Hollywood movies, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming videos. We'll continue bringing you more strange facts, hidden details, and behind-the-scenes stories that you may have never heard before. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Your support motivates us to keep researching, discovering, and sharing the most fascinating stories from the history of Hollywood cinema. We wish you good health, lots of happiness, and we'll see you in the next Weird Facts video.